Hi, this is Arthur, and this is a summary of the story of the Trailblaze Continuance, Crown of the Mundane and Divine, released in Honkai Star Rail version 1.6. The Trailblazer gets a message from Herta that she, Screwlum, and Ruan Mei are meeting at the Herta space station. Like Herta and Screwlum, Ruan Mei is a genius from the Genius Society. Herta invites the Trailblazer to meet Ruan Mei and she agrees. The Trailblazer later finds Ruan Mei near the railway platform. When they meet, Ruan Mei offers the Trailblazer some cake and she takes a bite. Ruan Mei then reveals that before arriving, she expressed interest to Herta for using the Trailblazer as an assistant. That's why she added anti-truth serum to the cake she just offered. The Trailblazer is now unable to answer any questions related to Ruan Mei. This is to protect Ruan Mei's research and personal safety. Ruan Mei will give the antidote later and will compensate the Trailblazer accordingly. Ruan Mei goes on to say that when she arrived, she borrowed something called the Phase Flame from Herta. Using the Phase Flame, Ruan Mei tried to cultivate life on the space station in order to create more geniuses. While she succeeded in creating sentient life, they are not geniuses, and many of them scattered across the space station. Ruan Mei now requests the Trailblazer to retrieve these new little life forms. The Trailblazer does some investigating and finds one of them. She sends it to the storage zone and gets a message from Ruan Mei asking to go with her to a meeting with Herta and Screwlum. They head over, and after a bit, it seems clear the meeting is about the simulated universe and not about Ruan Mei's life forms. Ruan Mei pulls the Trailblazer aside and tells her more of the life forms are located in a sealed zone on the space station. Ruan Mei gives the Trailblazer access to the sealed zone and sends her off. Once there, the Trailblazer investigates and finds even more of Ruan Mei's life forms. She also meets someone wearing a statue head who directs her towards Ruan Mei's real creation. The Trailblazer heads towards it and finds a giant incubator with a clone of an emanator of propagation inside. Side note, emanators are beings who follow aeons and are directly granted power from them. In this case, the clone was an emanator granted power from the aeon of propagation. The Trailblazer fights the clone, who soon dies on its own. Afterwards, the Trailblazer meets with Ruan Mei, who confirms she created the clone. Ruan Mei also reveals the anti-truth serum will erase the Trailblazer's memory of Ruan Mei over time. Ruan Mei then says goodbye and leaves the space station. The Trailblazer heads back to Herta when news comes in that Herta was targeted in an attack. The Trailblazer heads to Herta's office where she finds Asta, Screwlum, and the man who wore the statue head. That man is Dr. Ratio of the Intelligentsia Guild, a delegate from the IPC. Asta tells them Herta is not on the station and one of her puppets was attacked. Dr. Ratio suspects the Trailblazer had something to do with it and interrogates her. The Trailblazer goes through her memories and tries to remember what happened. The Trailblazer recalls a while back Herta commissioned her to find a lost curio. This lost curio was an energy life form similar to the Wubbaboos and the Heliobi and had something to do with the Genius Society. At the same time, researchers were disappearing from the space station and it seemed related to the curio. They continue discussing the matter when they receive a report the Annihilation Gang has claimed responsibility for Herta's attack. The Annihilation Gang is a group that follows the Aeon Nanook, the Destruction. The message was delivered by Duke Inferno, also known as Ifrit. Duke Inferno is the leader of one of the Annihilation Gang's factions. With this news, the Trailblazer is vindicated of suspicion. The space station now seems to be in imminent danger from the Annihilation Gang. Dr. Ratio then asks Trailblazer to go with him and they investigate around the station. They later return to Asta and Screwlum and go over their findings. They conclude that Adler, a researcher specializing in curios, has gone missing like the other researchers. All the victims, including Adler, were opinion leaders on the space station's dark web and were all critical of management. As for Duke Inferno, he seems to have the ability to materialize his allies from his flames. This seems related to the disappearing researchers since some eyewitnesses saw them disappear in flames. Dr. Ratio then discusses the Phase Flame, a creation of the Genius Circle. The Phase Flame could shift between phases and was since lost. However, the kindling from which it was created was in Herta's possession. That kindling must have been what Herta lent to Ruan Mei and what she asked the Trailblazer to find. Dr. Ratio also deduces that Duke Inferno somehow spawned from the Phase Flame. Adler must have figured out this connection was disappeared because of it. Dr. Ratio goes on to say that all of this was planned by Duke Inferno in order to stir up chaos on the space station. Just then, they receive a message that researchers are revolting because they suspect the missing researchers were disappeared by management. Asta then suddenly bursts into the flames and disappears. Screwlum concludes that Duke Inferno's ability to phase things is just a splinter of the primordial phase flame's powers. That means Asta is still somewhere in the confines of the space station. Dr. Ratio says that Duke Inferno is not on the station. He simply sent his infernal flame here to cause chaos. If they can find his infernal flame, they can bring Asta back. Screwlum says he will head to Herta's office where he can activate something to trap the infernal flame within the station. Dr. Ratio says the infernal flame is an energy life form and they can track it. Dr. Ratio and the Trailblazer then track and pursue the infernal flame, eventually cornering it. The infernal flame brings Asta back before escaping through a wall. They then meet up with Screwlum, who explains that Adler and the rest of the missing researchers have been found and the matter is settled. The revolting researchers also seem to realize this was all just a psyop, instigated by Duke Inferno to trick them into revolting. Somewhere else, Screwlum confronts Dr. Ratio after he has captured the infernal flame. Screwlum accuses him of being the principal figure behind this incident. Turns out Dr. Ratio somehow acquired a spark of the phase flame and was secretly saving the disappeared researchers behind the scenes. Dr. Ratio justifies his actions by saying he loathes idiots. As a result, he quietly instigated the recent events because he wanted the researchers on the station to question the geniuses they worship and become more intelligent themselves. Dr. Ratio then uses the infernal flame to leave and leaves it in Screwlum's possession. Later on, the Trailblazer meets up with Herta, who seems okay they never found the missing phase flame. And that is the end of this quest in this video. If you've liked what you've seen here, please like, comment, and subscribe.